If you've been watching this, I wanted to remind you about some of the perverse incentives that judges, prosecutors, and by extension, police have for racking up charges and felonies and hammering people. And they particularly like to hammer people who have the more serious felonies, of which sex offense at any level is considered one of them. And I wanted to remind you the perverse incentives of judges, for example. And I'll give myself as an example of one thing that happened with the prosecution as well as with the judge. Well, I didn't know this at the time. I only found this out actually the last couple of years. But apparently, what judges get in Virginia, and it's not any different in most states, is they get a scorecard. Judges are appointed among the attorney ranks, and it's kind of a nice job. They don't have to hustle for, clients and clientele. Um, if they belong to a bigger law firm, they don't have to worry about billable hours or anything. They look pretty good. And it comes with a number of nice perks, not the least of which is people bowing and scraping before them, which some of us now refuse to do. The whole business of calling people your honor and everything seems to be quite a bit overrated when you look at the fact that people like Clarence Thomas routinely ignore the canons of judicial conduct. But be that as it may, let's just talk a minute about what judges have as an incentive. They get a scorecard. I think it's every 10 years, could be every 6 to 8. I honestly don't remember. But as I'm researching my book, I'm putting some things together. I'm running into some curious reminders for myself. So judges get a scorecard, and this scorecard comes out about repeatedly, I guess, but it really comes out. It's filled in, but it comes out right as they are about to come up for appointment before the courts committee or the justice committee or whatever legislature they're part of. And then what they do is they are scored based on how many acquittals they do, how many people they let off, and what the range of their sentences are. So not only do they are they looked at for how well they hammer people who have anything from murder to a sex offense, but how strict they are on those guidelines. And if they're letting people off, if they're going to the lower end of the guidelines, or if they're ignoring the guidelines in favor of a lower punishment because they use their discretion in a way that's, doesn't mean legislative approval, then they are punished for that. And by punished, they get a lower score. They may not be removed, but they're certainly sanctioned. They're looked on a little askance and maybe warned, but they are frequently in competition with others. And if you have somebody on the other side of the courts committee who prefers a particular candidate, you may find yourself out on your ear, and nobody wants that. So what they do is they try to hammer people as much as possible. I previously said Lisa Bonder of Kemmler, who was presiding judge in the case with my ex-wife, who previously had another Hispanic client, and I call my wife basically her client because that's the way she treated my ex-wife. Um, with Lorena Bobbitt, when she was a defense attorney for Bobbitt, Lisa Bonder of Kemmler, um, did all sorts of things to help her client. Did a great job from what everyone said. Uh, this woman avoided murder charges and instead had to spend some 30 days or something in a psych ward in lieu of being punished severely. And yet, when Lisa Bonder of Kemmler is on the bench, she hammers people, and the scorecard demonstrates that. The number she's well on the high tier of hammering people for sex offenses and for so-called violent crime. Now, again, nobody's saying that you should give people a pass for that, but you should be aware as a tax-paying citizen that there's a perverse incentive for judges to go after people and hit them on the higher end of things because they can look like good guys. They can look like heroes and saints and angels. And again, it's got to be a perverse incentive for them to be told, if you do this, we'll look more favorably on you. Not we'll look favorably on you at how fair you are, which is what the system is supposed to be. Not that we'll look at how just you are, whether you weighed contingent or exigent circumstances fairly and equitably. No, that doesn't really matter for the list at all. Um, so I haven't talked about that a lot. Mostly I talk about ICAC. I talk about the registry, which is run by the State Patrol. Lately, that's what I've been doing. But I want to show one little thing that's come out about the prosecution. So Elena Lowe, who's now with Jason Mayares, the Attorney General here in Virginia, his office. She's a former Commonwealth Attorney assistant Commonwealth Attorney, and quite the little liar, I have to admit. At pretrial, she tried to frame the pretrial position that Detective Bauer came up with by claiming that there was a real child. Of course, they couldn't come up with anything. And I want to remind you that in, I think, 2 sessions ago, when I was going through my booking process and sitting with the nurse who was asking me some medical questions, the police came up to me, part of the ICAC unit, and thrust some papers and asked me to sign it. I said I wouldn't sign anything. And I looked it over and they said, no, this is good. It reduces your charges. And what it reduced my charge from was solicitation of an actual minor to attempted solicitation. Certainly that was better. And I signed it because there was no minor. I never intended to solicit a minor in any event, or even a fake minor. But when we got on August 17th, I think it was August 17th, 2018, trying to remember now, at pretrial, 2018 or 19, I can't remember at this moment, they argued something very different. They argued the original position was that there was a real child. So get this, knowing there was no child, because she had all the charging documents in front of her, she still argued before the district judge that there was. And when the judge asked her to prove that there was, and we forcefully pushed back, there was a lot of hamana, because she had a whole lot of nothing. But of course, for the next judge, that didn't matter because they had refined their tactics, and all they had to do was link up a couple of divergent positions. And if you weren't paying very careful attention, and you didn't know what I knew by sitting there during the interrogation, you would not know what they did to manipulate circumstances. Of course, when some of these were pointed out before Judge Devine of the Fairfax court system, he didn't really care either. He didn't ask a single question. He had taken it on faith what they said. And why would he do that? Because, of course, he was up for renewal very soon thereafter. So it's kind of curious. Either he was, I'm going to recant that a little bit. Either he was up for review soon, or he had just completed his 10th year. I don't remember which one, but he was right at that renew period. And he certainly had it clearly in mind where his butter was bread was buttered, as the case would be. So that's the perverse incentive that prosecutors who want to be able to brag about it during an election, and judges who want their cushy reappointments reinstated or renewed, that's what they want to do. Make sure that they have indicated that and pushed it out in front of the General Assembly so that they look like the heroes. And justice and fair play and integrity and decency and all the things that they're supposed to do. Because remember, they're supposed to do that. But who's looking over their shoulder? Not really anyone at the local level. They would have to screw up grandly, repeatedly, as we have seen, for it finally to get the notice of the Bar Association and others who finally had their interests imperiled by these judges, and then there'd be some kind of action. Certainly. Certainly they're too close to one another, and unless people speak out, they're going to continue to get away with it. This is ICAC Unpacked for the 24th of August. Have a good day.